Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to another CSR video. I'm here with the F5 Roadster in live racing. I'm going to do a bunch of live racing. We're going to discuss this car and its live racing abilities as we race various players in live lobby. So one thing about this car is that this is probably the best live racer to come along for free in quite some time. It's one of the cars that I was so excited for. I pulled like 10 of them. And I built at least 4 of them for various lobbies. And this blue one I built for the fastest lobby range that I normally would be willing to play in, and that is around 8.0 to 7.7, 8.0 lobby. So here it is. It's sitting in about what I would estimate to be 8.2 to 8.0 lobby. You want to be careful when we talk about lobbies. You know, we assume this is how it works based on a certain bracket, and observation over time says it is how it works, but doesn't mean that we're always right. And the other thing is that cars that have lower performance point for the time range that is expected can land in a lobby slower than what its dyno says, and that's why the F5 is so good. It's one of those cars that usually end up in a much slower lobby, and there's a limit to that. Generally, it's what we call 1 or 2 lobby, meaning 0.2 to 0.4 difference. Okay, every 2-3 tenths you expect a lobby change, meaning a different group of cars will race you. When you're able to get lobby advantage by 1 lobby, that means you usually 0.2 faster on the dyno than everybody else in there, and therefore you could run slower than the dyno than everybody in there and yet still win most if not all of your races. And that makes sure the general system of bumping you into a faster lobby if you run too fast doesn't kick in too quick. So on that run I did a 7.9, which isn't my go here, but you know, in 8.0, 8.2 to 7.7, 7.8, you're going to get a grouping of cars. So even guys at dyno 7.8 can end up in 8.0, and the guys who dyno 8.2 can end up in 8.0. The reason why the F5, and I'm racing a F5 Venom Purple Star here, he just did a 7.899. The reason why the F5 Roadster is good is because not only can it be at least 0.2 to 0.4 dynoed faster than typical lobbies, depending on which lobby you're going for, it can also, through shift pattern, beat dyno by another 0.2. So you're talking about a potential margin of over half a second against other players. And he slowed down this time and took the loss. So I slowed down because neither one of us want to get bumped. So I won that one on an 8.6 versus his 9.3. We already know he can run 7.899, and I can run faster than 7.8, but both of us kind of knew if we really wanted to go that route, both of us may end up suffering a bump as a result. So he took the initiative and slowed down on that one. All right. Bentley GT3 race car. So at one point, that was probably one of the best live racers in the game. Since then, stuff like the F5 Roadster came along and dethroned it. But don't underestimate the GT3 property setup. It's still an excellent live racer. It's just that it, unlike the F5 Roadster, does not beat dyno by much, if any, and a little bit harder to launch and shift than even the F5. So little trickier car to use property. And if it was set up almost identically well, the F5 Roadster will trump it almost every time. Okay, now the Gamera. The Gamera is great in slower lobbies. It's in the 12s, 11s, and 13s, they're almost unbeatable because not only do they have a performance point advantage at those lobbies, a huge one at that, they also carry super high evo in those lobbies because of a performance point drop situation with certain stage 6s. It doesn't happen in 8.0 for the Gamera. So by the time the Gamera gets to 9.0, 8.0, it's no longer carrying any advantage like that. And therefore, it is no longer a car that's going to destroy anybody. If anything, it is more likely to get destroyed at that level of upgrades. That's why you will see more Gameras in slower lobbies and not so much in faster. Now, the 16, the Deval 16, is a good car. properly set up and used, it is pretty good. The difference between that car and the F5 comes down to the F5 escalates a little better, in my opinion. I don't know what the tune is on that 16 because I don't own the car, but I can tell you chances are the F5 is running slightly lower performance point and higher Evo at the same level of performance. And it beats dyno, which I don't think the Devo 16 does. But again, I don't own that car, so take my statement with a grain of salt. Now, what's really been killing the live lobby recently since the release of this F5 is other F5s. Because everybody's got one, and we all can run 2/10 under dyno, and we can push each other. Live lobbies gotten a little messy, okay, for other cars and for F5s, because there are F5s everywhere. And then if you race it and you want to beat it, you're going to have to push you whatever car it is you're using to beat it. That means everybody's kind of pushing their limits a little bit. And I noticed that over the past few weeks of testing this car, that I'm seeing more and more cars that have been pushed into lobbies where it probably isn't as competitive, most likely from racing against other F5s in the lobbies. And that happened to the F5s as well, because if you don't hold back a little bit and you push your car to the limit every single time, you will eventually get into a lobby where your dyno and the lobby is on par. That means you now have to run under dyno to win, and that eventually pushes you a little further up in the performance range against other cars. So now you're running, let's just say 7.8, okay, beating your 8.0 dyno, but you're now facing cars that dyno 7.8 and may potentially run 7.7s. So it gets harder and harder. So this, again, this F5 did pretty well. It ran a 8.050. I had to get into the 7.9s to win that one. But you can see where this could be a vicious cycle if neither guy wants to back off and we keep pushing each other. Eventually, you're going to end up with two cars that are pushed out of the range of the lobby. So 4-star Supras are not bad, okay, but the GR Supra Elite Tuner just doesn't lobby as well in the faster lobbies. From 9.7 and faster, they become less and less competitive. Now, they do beat dyno by shift pattern, so your competitiveness stays in that aspect. But let's say you've already been beating dyno to beat people, you end up eventually where you're not going to be as competitive. So that's the reality of how that plays out. So here we have the Reaper with another F5 Roadster. Again, I'm seeing F5 Roadsters everywhere. And that's the thing. If you have a lot of F5 Roadsters in the lobby, at some point, it's going to be harder and harder to beat each other. Okay, you're probably hearing my doggy right now. He's grumpy and barking in the background, but the mic usually picks that up. He's pretty loud. All right, so Reaper did a 8.055 on that run. I can do better than that, so I'm going to re-challenge and see if I can beat him. Okay, he raised 15K. I take that as a thank you money, and we'll just go ahead and take it. There we go. Unless I botch my launch completely, this car will run very well. Without shifting into 7th, I can run 7.9s, 8.0s. If I shift into 7th, I'll be running 7.8s. So this time he ran a lot slower for whatever reason, but a win's a win. I'll take it. So here we go. Spoon. Now, this Chevy Corvette C8 race car, when it first came out, it can be tuned to beat dyno by a decent chunk, which means in certain lobbies you could use it to win with that benefit, right, with that margin. But it's tough. It's tough to control the car, and it'll eventually get pushed. I like the car, but from live racing, being able to push the car without ruining the car, it's very hard. So unfortunately nowadays it sits for the most part. TS1 GT. Now, TS1 GT was never an outstanding live racer, but it's not bad. And especially once you get into like the 8s, a lot of the cars equalize. Meaning, at this point, a lot of cars are running stage 6s, a lot of high performance point levels. So it's not as much or as often you'll see a car that can get lobby advantage in the 8-second lobby. So against most cars, that TS1 GT is perfectly fine and can take on most cars and run just fine and probably win. But when you're running against a car like what I have, it's a little tougher. Oh, I beat him by thousands. That was cutting it kind of close. All right, moving right along. Chevelle, same issue at this level of performance. The Chevelle start to lose its performance point to Evo ratio advantage right around about 9.8, 9.7. By the time you, or even low 10s is getting a little rough. By the time you get to like 8s, you're basically running a standard car. So you're not going to have lobby advantage. It'll probably, I don't believe that's a dyno beating car either. So that makes it kind of hard to use that car in faster lobbies to push for wins. I mean, swapping, it's fine. I mean, he has swap symbols. If I were swapping with him, that would be perfectly fine. All right, so Reaper's coming back again. So F5 to F5, again, I know what he can run. He knows what I can run. It's kind of tricky. So we want to, oh, I screwed that up. All right. Well, I guess he's going to get this because I was talking and not thinking, and I totally screwed that up. Okay, so that's a screw up on my part. 8.2 with a bad run. That tells you something. And no nitrous on that run either. So I'm going to re-challenge and win back my honor. Okay, hopefully. If he accepted. Cool. So we're going to run again. This time I'm not going to screw up my launch. Shifting instantly to second isn't good for this car. Some cars need that. F5 Roadster, not so much. Basically, this car's let it get to like 40, 50 mile per hour. Shift into second and nitrous seems to do the best for the car for the most setups. In the much slower lobbies, it might be different, but in this lobby, it's fine. So I think we made the point. Okay, the car is pretty good in live. I got this red one, but that's in a very slow lobby. Let's go ahead and go to the next bracket down. This is my white car that I set up. So this one's running like 8.40 dyno, or 8.368 or 378 dyno, I think. It's one of the two. The blue car was running a 7.8 flat dyno. Okay, so that one's 7.8, able to do 7.6 and change. This car is 8.4, able to do 8.1 and change to 8.2 and change, depending on how well I can shift it. So it's an 8.2 car in essence. But this car, I pushed a little bit hard in the past, so it doesn't have as much lobby advantage. Most opponents are like 8.7s. At one point I had it in 8.9, but I kept racing other F5s like this one, and I kept pushing it to win. So I'm running a lot of 8.4s, 8.5s. So it lost a little bit of its advantage already, but it's still a good car. And I can probably slow it back down into a little bit slower lobby with matching it to my other account and just running some slow runs. But here we go. Took that win, but again, I had to push the car a little bit. Let's see what I ran. Yeah, almost ran dyno, 8.442 against 8.496. Again, the slower end of this grouping, you can see cars in 8.7s to 8.8s, but most of the cars in here are going to be 8.6 to 8.5s. The best cars in here are going to be 8.2s. But those guys usually won't be running you with 8.2s unless they're forced to, and they just don't want to lose. And the Tuatera in here can run 8.0 to 7 point somethings. But then that's on a severe down tune. So they'll do 8.1 and then probably get booted. So that's, but the Tuatera does that everywhere. So it's kind of a unique case in that situation. All right. So yeah, had to do it 8.396. Now I'm really pushing myself. I'll be honest with you, that Ford is a surprisingly advantageous car in lobby for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. The numbers doesn't justify it, but man, that car always gives you a run for your money. So I could actually go back and play with that car more. That's an interesting car in that sense. But right now I'm just loving the F5. So that's what I'm messing with right now. So yeah, I better be careful here. I'm pushing myself a little too hard here with this. Yeah, I'm gonna let's call it here. I think enough racing for the night. So this is Again, the white one with the gold wheels that I built. The blue one is my favorite and the fastest. This is the second fastest setup. And literally the beauty of this car is you can keep going down and have lobby after lobby, and it wins everywhere, except maybe in the very, very fast lobby. I would stop at 8.0, which is what I did. So, all right, so that was live racing with the F5 Roadster. I hope you liked that video. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you like my channel and like this kind of videos, subscribe, hit the bell, and you get notified when I put up new videos. And as always, thank you for watching my videos. I'll catch you next time.